Every time we bake something and say we're giving it to somebody, we've got one friend who always says, pick me, or is that for me? Well, this time, by the time you see this video, Lorianne, you're going to know what an apple caramel upside down cake tastes like. Let's get at it. First thing we're going to do is add 6 tablespoons of butter to a saucepan, and we're going to heat this on medium. It's on medium now. And add 3/4 of a cup of packed brown sugar. Now we gotta let that butter melt. I'm not going to go crazy with it here. We're just going to let it melt slowly. Now we're going to add the cinnamon. Recipe actually calls for 1/4 teaspoon, but can you really ever have enough cinnamon? There you go. I'm going to stir that in there a bit. Now, it also calls for 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, and we do measure that because Teresa takes her vanilla very seriously, mainly because according to her, it costs an arm and a leg. There you go. Teresa, you saw that? 1/2 teaspoon. Lorianne, you're actually worth a little more than 1/2 teaspoon, but you know. Now, I'm just going to keep that on medium heat and stir it for a minute. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and set my timer to make sure I do that for the full minute. You want it to thicken up a little bit. That's your minute, and it looks pretty good to me. Okay, you can use a pie plate if you want. You got to make sure it's quite deep. An upside down cake, you don't know which way it's going to go. So we use it. We're going to cook it in a cast iron. So just pour it in. I'll just spread that around. I'm not preheating the cast iron. Now, I'll get my apples ready. All right, now what I'm going to do is just place my apples. Recipe called for 2, but I cut up 4 because I suspect this is a bit bigger pan. So if I have extras, I'm just going to eat them. You can use pretty much any type of apple you want. We're using Cortland. I'd suspect that we couldn't get them yesterday when we picked these up, but I think a Granny Smith would be just about perfect in this. I guess there is going to be some left over here. I'm just going to stick these ones in the middle wherever I feel like it. You don't need to design for the middle here. I guess maybe I could have done that with 3. There you go. Now, that's got to stay, I'm going to put that in the fridge. It's got to stay cool until we're done with the cake mix. So I'm going to Put that in the fridge for a bit. All right, now we're going to start making the batter. This is where it gets messy. Okay, I've got the oven preheating at 350. We're going to add 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. One and a half teaspoons of baking powder. 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Sorry, that was cinnamon. That's 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. And 1/2 teaspoon of salt. All right, so I'm just going to mix those together. So now we're going to start off with the wet ingredients. First of all, we need 1/2 cup of butter. And we need 6 tablespoons of milk. I'm going to use the electric mixer for this. It's quite specific. You have to beat it on high. And you do this until it's creamy. Now we're going to add 2 eggs. Lori Ann's getting her eggs back. 2 of them anyway. Now more of Teresa's vanilla. You want a tablespoon of vanilla. I'm sorry, a teaspoon of vanilla. And you want 1/2 cup of white sugar and 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Now it's time to add the dry ingredients. We're going to mix it slowly. Okay, now I'm going to add the rest of the dry. I'm just going to mix this in a little bit with the beater until I get it going, and then it's going to be mixed by hand. Now it's time to get the apples and the sugar out of the fridge. Okay, now we pour the batter in. This is going to be a lot more dense than a normal cake. And by the time this is done baking, you're probably going to see the sugar and cinnamon and butter come up through the edges here. That should crisp right up on the edges too. All right, there it is. Now it was in the oven for somewhere between 40 and 46 minutes. Now, you never really know what an upside down cake's going to do, so I've got my drip tray in there underneath. All right, so I've got a 2-inch deep, a little less than 2-inch deep pan in there right now. That's what the cake is in. And a lid for that pan would be too low. So we've got to make a little bit of a funnel here to go on top of that. So that's the game plan here. What we don't want the top of the cake, which is going to be the bottom, to cook before the middle of the cake is finished. So I'm going to put this on it when it's halfway done. That is going to go on top of my cake. And that's it until we have 22 minutes to go before we put that on top of the cake. We'll be back. All right, the timer went off. Let's see what we got in the oven now. And it did boil over, which is why we put the drip pan in. And I'm using my oven mitts for a reason here. No. Okay. So another 25 or 30 minutes and we'll be good to go, I think. Safe to say we had some drippings in there. It's a little bit smoky in here. Okay, timer's off. Let's see what we got in the oven. Oh. Oh. So, I checked it a little while ago. I stuck a knife in it, and it was pretty much done. There's my toothpick. Let's just check it here. All right, the toothpick comes out clean, so that's done there. So we're going to leave that about 15 minutes, and then we're going to see if it'll come out of the pan. I think that one thing that I am going to do, I'm going to take my knife and just run it around the edge here. That looks pretty good. The recipe actually calls for an ungreased pie pan, but I buttered mine just because I could, and because I like butter. And but I think Lorianne's going to like that. All right, now we see what happens here. Lorianne, I'm going to want my pie plate back. Oh my, there we go. Didn't sit in the pan as flat as I would have liked. I'm not gonna. There you go. What do you think of that? Apple caramel upside down cake. Lorianne, I hope you and Dennis and the girls enjoy this tonight.
Can you die of deliciousness from eating this cake?